Ezekiel time and the 10 chambers. Also, we're going to discuss the bulla, the seal impressions discovered in the city of David, and how they contribute to the things you are looking at in measuring the temple, in the scribe's chamber, and the north and south chamber, and the temple. Okay, in this presentation, guys, one thing that we discussed is the concept of 1 2/3. We didn't get a chance to cover that in this video, but we will get into Ezekiel time and the 10 chambers. Okay, as you can see from the title of the video, Ezekiel time and the 10 chambers. Now, when we talk about Ezekiel time, you're going to see that in this presentation, the things we're doing is a calling. We're not just doing something for fun. We've been called to this, and we're going to show you the proof and authorization. Leland, what authorization do you have to do this work? Well, we'll show you in this video. But here you can see I'm holding a line, and the premise of time and measurements can be found in a meter. So essentially what a meter is its distance is the amount of time it takes for the length of a string to swing 1 second. Okay, 1/1000. All right, so that, now this one, the knot is there, so it's shorter than a meter. But the idea is that the distance of measuring a meter, a measuring distance, relates to time. This is important for you to understand this principle. As we're going to show you, Ezekiel time shows us many of the chambers in the temple complex, and confirms. We need confirmations. We never want to approach a holy measurement, sacred architecture, and not have multiple confirmations, as we explained many times in this channel, that any approach that we have to the interpretation of spiritual things, spiritual must be interpreted by spiritual. Scripture must interpret Scripture. That if something is true, it must be proven by multiple witnesses. Okay, and that's essentially what we're getting at with Ezekiel time, and we'll also discuss the 10 chambers. Now, we also have a principle we're going to talk about here today, and that is the now this is more of a perfect square here, but this gate, we're just going to use it as a demonstration, that there's another principle of 1 2/3. Okay, so as we explained, it's very important that we get our measurements right, but Ezekiel doesn't provide the height of the buildings. Now, the height of the buildings is determined by the width. He provides the width. So in providing the width, there actually is a ratio of 1 2/3 width is equal to 1 in height. Okay, so that's a ratio that you will see throughout the entire temple complex. Okay, so that when we approach some information, we don't have all of the details. Ezekiel doesn't say exactly every single measurement, but based on the space and everything else, we can come to a conclusion that, okay, the puzzle pieces will fit together with these measurements. And what is the height? Because he doesn't provide the height, but he provides the width quite often. So we do have a width measurement. Well, that width, if we consider that to be 1 2/3 the width, and we take the height to be 1 as a ratio, we thus can determine the height of many of the structures. We'll talk about that later in the video. All right, so the other thing is, what is the authorization? Well, you'll see as we continue, we'll talk about these bulla seals. These are seals that have been discovered of people in the Bible at various points, and they had buildings. They had chambers. Okay, so what happened is these people, their seal impression was prophetically hidden until the times of the end. Many people in the Bible, Baruch the scribe, Jeremiah, and Nathan Melech. Okay, so they held chambers. And so this is our authorization for this work, is that the if we look into what the Most High did and through King Hezekiah as well, and through archaeology, the Most High has released the seal impressions of the biblical people to allow for the release of the revelation of what those people had in their day would be released in our day as a prophetic message, okay? And as specific things related to the book of Jeremiah and the measurements, which we'll get into in this presentation. So let's take a look at Ezekiel time. Okay, very exciting. How does the book of Ezekiel time show us temple measurements? As you can see, book of Ezekiel, throughout the book of Ezekiel, Ezekiel as a prophet is extremely detail oriented. Anytime he has a prophecy, he records the year, month, and day of the prophecy. Okay, so throughout the whole book. Now, what you're going to see is that the information here, when he records the year, month, and day, the numbers of which, okay, they're going to show us temple measurements. This is what we're saying, guys. This is a calling. The scriptures are coded. Things are hidden and released unto the last days, as Daniel said, that they would be, for the times of the end, these things would be made known. Okay, so if we go through the book, what we have here, this is in notes, by the way, in all chambers, the all chambers document. Over here we have the book of Ezekiel, and we have the chapter and verse. So in chapter 1, verses 1 and 2, it says the 30th year, 4th month, 5th day of the month. And in Ezekiel chapter 8, it says the 6th year, the 6th month, and the 5th day of the month. Chapter 20, verse 1, the 7th year, the 5th month, and the 10th day of the month. And the chapter 24, then we have year 9, month 10. Okay, now what we're getting at is when we take the order of the book and we go through certain chapters, in this case 4 line items, okay, of year, month, and day, this is going to show us the temple chambers, okay? We're going to go through this quickly, but we just want you to see this, okay, in first the format of the book. So what you have year, month, day. In these 4 line items, chapters 1 through 24, they're going to show us the temple chambers, the chambers inside the temple. Then, the book, of course, continues. Chapter 26, we get year 11, day 1. Chapter 29, year 10, month 10, day 12. Okay, chapter 29, verse 17, 27, 1, 1, 11, 1, 7, 11, 3, 1. You get the idea. Okay, now these, you can see 5, okay, are in green, and they're going to show us the measurements of the temple porch, specifically. Now, I know that doesn't make any sense to you just looking at these numbers, so don't worry, we'll give you the detail. Now, the next cluster here goes from chapter 32 to 33. And in it, we see 12, 12, 1, 12, 12, 15, 12, 10, 5. Now, what this is going to show us is measurements in the city or the land portions, okay, which the book of Ezekiel describes. And then we actually have one of our line items appearing twice. So this, the 12, 10, 5, we're applying that to 2 circumstances, all right? One of which is the city, all right, the 12, 10, 5, and the other of which is the north and south chambers. Okay, so the purpose of this video is to talk about the chambers, and some of those we see here. Okay, so for example, the temple chambers, all right? The north and south chambers, okay? Here, all right. Now, let's show you real quick how all of these show us the precise measurements of the temple. So basically, this page takes the information that we just showed you in the last view. Book of Ezekiel shows us the year, the time, and now we fill in the information to show you that we have confirmation on the information we're submitting to you. Okay, we have confirmation. So as you can see, we're calling these temple chambers, where the year is the height of the temple. So the year is year 30, but it's 30 cubits. So the numbers here, now we're going to relate to cubits in the temple complex. So the height of the temple, 30 cubits. There are chambers inside the temple, which are 4 cubits in width. All right, and there's other ones that are 5 cubits. So here we have the 5. The middle innermost, 6. So now what we're getting is we're getting the chambers inside the temple. We're getting their measurements: 4 cubits, 5 cubits, 6 cubits. We have a thickness of the wall, okay, which is 6 cubits. We have a thickness of another wall, which is 5 cubits. So this gives us the 6 and the 5. We have a innermost chamber that's actually 7, okay, or 7.5 cubits. We have another where the chambers in height are 5 cubits. And then we get the chambers that are 10 cubits, okay? And then we get other chambers that are 9 cubits, okay? We'll get to this in future videos, but this is not random, guys. This is perfect order of the numbers of the year, month, and day, showing us precise measurements, of the temple chambers. Now, we also get a 10 and a 10. And you can see we've highlighted what we believe these are, is inside the temple. Okay, we have the chambers in the upper portion of the temple, and the lower portion we have cherubim and palm trees. We believe their height is to be 10 cubits of the cherubim. The height of the palm trees is 10 cubits. We believe that's what the 10 and the 10 is here. Okay, now I'm sure that's all just coincidence, right? Well, let's keep going. Once we get and we continue, we can see the same thing with the temple porch. Now, the temple porch numbers we see in the 11. Okay, so that's the porch width on the inside. And then the door has 2 leaves for each door. That's the 1. Then we have a 10 cubits is the width of the doorway. And our 10 here is the 10 steps. So in the porch, there are 10 steps that go up into the temple. Then we have a 1. This is the post by one side, and the post on the pillar on the other side. Then we have another 11. And this 11 relates to the 6 cubits in the post and the 5 cubits in the door sides. Now, for time's sake, we don't have the time to do the full presentation in each one of these. We'll have a whole video on each section that we're looking at here. So I know some of this I'm going to go over quickly, and it won't make sense, but be patient. We'll get to it in future videos. All right, so the 11 here relates to the thickness of the post and the door sides. Then we have the 1 related to the 5 cubits on one side, all right, and then there's another 1 over here related to the 1 on the other side. We have 7 cubits. This is the width of the door in the Holy of Holies, okay, and then we have another 11 here. This is our third 11. We had 11 here, here, and here, 3 of them. But once again, we have 6 plus 5, and this relates to the post and the half door. And then we have 3, which is the number of cubits in the gate width. Okay, so we'll get in the future, we'll explain all these numbers, but it's not random. It's not happenstance that the fact that these numbers appear within various line items of the exact year, month, and day in the book of Ezekiel. So the next is the city. So in the city, it's 12 tribes, 12 land portions, and 1 portion and gate per. Okay, so this gives us 3 line items which show us the city. City is 12 gates, related to the 12 apostles, which we showed you before, and there's 15. Okay, the 15 here, we add the 15. The 15 is combined with this 10, and this gives us the 25,000 in the length of the land offering. And then here the 10 is the 10,000 cubits of the borders. Okay, and then as we explained before, we also have another 12. These relate to the 12 thrones of the 12 apostles. And then we have a 5. This relates to the 5,000 cubits in the city. So now we have a portion of the year, month, and day that relates to the city. And then lastly, what we have is the north and south chambers. So now the latter end of the book of Ezekiel, chapters 40 through 48, of course, deal with the temple itself. All right, but we actually combine our last line item here, and this contributes to both the city and what you can see here. It says NS chambers. These are the north and south chambers. So we apply our 12. This is the length of the middle room of the floor. Okay, so there are 3 levels. This is the middle level. 10 cubits. This is the length of the upper floor, the highest floor. Okay. And here you can see a 14. This is the year 14. And these are the cubits in the lowest floor. Okay? So it's not by coincidence that we get the precise measurements of the lowest floor, 14, middle, 12, upper, 10. Okay? Now we get a 5 here. This is the thickness of the wall. All right? And then we get a 1. There's a way. There's a door that opens that's 1 cubit. And then we have a 10. This is the walkway. So inside the building, there's a walkway, the streets and lanes of the city, which we had explained to you earlier. All right, so these are not random details, but the fact that the book of Ezekiel, the years and months and days that are recorded throughout the book do show us temple measurements, okay? Just like a meter is determined by the length of a string, okay, in the time, 1 second, it takes for it to swing from one side to another. Now, as we detailed in the title of the video, 10 chambers. In a chamber in the temple can be a room, a chamber, or it can be a building. Now, we just want to point this out because there are 10 times in the King James, or in English when we read it, it says the word chambers. But in Hebrew, there are multiple words used for chambers. And these words are very important for us, very, very significant. And we have them here. So in Ezekiel chapters 40 through 48, the term chambers can refer to individual rooms in a building or entire buildings. Now, some of those words we have here. In Hebrew, we read Selah. Okay, Selah, and here's the number in Strong's Concordance. Lishka. Okay, Lishka, Strong's H3957. This is the most common word for chamber. And we have a Tav and an Aleph, which is significant for us because it is a reversal of the letters Aleph Tav. So it's instead of Aleph Tav, it's Tav Aleph. Okay. Strong's H8372. So let's look at the Tav Aleph chambers, or little chambers. Now these are found inside the gates. Okay. So they're little chambers, it says, and when we read it in King James or in English, most translations, in the gates. Now, we believe that the significance of this is that the reason it's the Tav Aleph, it is Aleph Tav's his name. Okay, he says, to he who overcome, I will give him my new name. And so we believe these chambers relate to the apostles that sit on thrones in these chambers, judging the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. Okay, so the Tav Aleph, Ta, all right, little chambers are one reed. Okay, so he says, to he who overcomes, I'll give a rod of iron. All right, so that's the reed of the 12 apostles as they judge and sit on 12 thrones. So that's 6 cubits squared, and these are the rooms for the apostles and their thrones, as we had showed you in the gates presentation. Okay, and this word does appear in 1 Kings 14:28 and 2 Chronicles 12:11, where they're called guard rooms. Okay, and it uses guard to run, and run, relates those that have run the race for Alpha and Omega, Aleph Tav, and have finished their course as the 12 apostles have. So that's one of the chambers. Another time he uses chambers, Lishka, is washing chambers. These are outside the gates of the north gate. Not gates, plural, gates, singular, of the north gate, where they wash the offerings. Well, if time permitting, we'll show you in the 3D model what each of these look like and where they are to situate ourselves, washing. And then we have the singers' chambers in the inner court, one facing north, the other facing the south, and they are on the east side of the court around the altar. And we know that one relates to the chorus or singers, and one is the symphony with the instruments of Psalm 150. Singers' chambers, very important for us. The priest's temple chamber. All right, so we have 2 of them. One of them is the house, and one of them is for the service of the altar. So the one facing south is for the priests, the keepers of the charge of the house or the temple. And the priest chambers facing north in the inner court for the priests and the keepers of the charge of the altar. Then we have the temple side chambers. Now we get a different word, Selah, and this is a rib. Okay, it's the same word, rib, that's used when Adam, Yahweh took the rib and made Eve. Okay, that's Selah. And it's an important distinction is made between this word, Selah, and the word chambers, Lishka. In chapter 41, verse 10, that describes rooms inside the holy place. Now, the reason we're spending some time, we're kind of planting seeds with you so that once we get to more descriptions, you'll see how important the words are and what it is we're presenting to you into getting the proper understanding and interpretation. Okay, so that there's 2 sections of chambers in the temple. That's what we're getting at with this word. And Selah describes one of them, and there's another set that uses the Lishka. Okay, rooms inside the holy place and the Holy of Holies. In 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 5, the chambers are called Yasha, meaning couch or bed, representing those that are intimate with the king. Thus, the temple has 2 sections of chambers inside of it, okay? Because we have 2 words in Hebrew, and we'll show you where they are. But we did actually already show you confirmation of that in the information we provided you earlier. We're just planting seeds for future videos here. All right, inner temple chambers, as we said, there's side chambers, and then above the door, even unto the innermost of the house, again referring to the upper chambers inside the temple. In Hebrew, aliyah. You may have heard aliyah means to go up. It's also called the inner parlor, header representing the upper room. So these are inside the holy place and the Holy of Holies. Okay, these here, and then these here go around the Holy of Holies and holy place, which we will get to in future videos. All right, so those are actually chambers inside a building, inside the temple, And then we have actual buildings like the north and south chambers. These are buildings where the priests eat and they keep their garments for the wedding supper. Okay, then we have 20 chambers. Now these are for the Levites, the ministers of the house, that have for a possession. So this would appear that they're houses or places for them to lodge that are outside the temple kind of complex, if you were. And then there are, and these actually, it says that they're in the suburbs, which is 50 cubits. And then we have the 30 chambers, okay? These 30 chambers are in the outer court, and these go around about the pavement of the court, 30 chambers. So these are the buildings around in the circle of some of which we showed you the sundial, okay? So there we go, guys. These notes we have posted on the website as part of the All Chambers document. Now, we'd like to take a moment and just show you through the book of Jeremiah some examples of where the temple chambers and some of the chambers are listed in Scripture. So here we are in Jeremiah 35, and Jeremiah, he says, I brought them, that is the Rechabites, into the house of the Lord. Okay, so he's going to the house of the Lord into a chamber. Okay, this is not the Holy of Holies, not the holy place. These are the chambers in the temple of the sons of Hanan, the son of Agina, the man of God, which was by the chamber of the princes. Okay, so we have a chamber. We have the chamber of the princes, which is above the chamber of Messiah, the son of Shalom, the keeper of the door. Okay, so he set before them, okay, the house of the Rechabites wines, and they would not drink the wine, okay, because they had a vow. But here's an example of the chambers. These are in the temple, in the house of the Lord, and chambers for the princes, and another one for the keeper of the door. Now, here's examples that we actually have in archaeology that these seal impressions of these actual people have resurfaced in our day. And here you can see in Jeremiah chapter 36, verse 10, then read Baruch. Okay, Baruch. Now, here is Baruch, his seal impression. It says, belonging to Baruchiah. Okay, that's Baruch means blessed, and a yod and a hey is just another version of the same name. Okay, so we believe this to be an authentic. Some dispute this. We believe this to be an authentic seal impression of the scribe Baruch. Okay, so that even in our day, we would actually have the authorization to build these or measure the temple. All right, so then read Baruch, the scribe, in the book, the words of Jeremiah in the house of the Lord. So he's reading the book of Jeremiah in the house of the Lord, in the chamber of the house of the Lord, okay? So there you can see chamber and chamber of Jeremiah. Chamber of Jeremiah. All right, so we showed you here is Baruch, here's his seal, and here is Jeremiah. Or another way of pronouncing in Hebrew is Geramahu. All right, so we have two seal impressions, all right, that have come out in archaeology that are in the same verse. Jeremiah chapter 36:10. All right. The Jeremiah, the son of Shaphan, the scribe. Okay, so we have a chamber, okay, of Jeremiah, whether that be in the house of the Lord, Shaphan, the scribe, or in the higher court at the entry of the new gate. So it could be by the gate. Okay, some of these can be, as we showed, we had chambers in the gate, and then other ones are actual chambers in the temple. But here is another version of the seal of Jeremiah. Okay, of the entry of the new gate, all right, of the Lord's house. And he read in the ears of the people. Okay, so here, once again, we see the scribe's chamber. The reason we believe that there is an actual building, the scribe's chamber, we'll get in future videos, but here's verse 12. And he went into the king's house, which, of course, is the king's house. We've showed you many times. And the scribe's chamber. So right next to the king's house is the scribe's chamber. And lo, the princes sat there. Elishama, the scribe, okay, Elnathan, and Jeremiah. Now, Elishama, his seal impression has also resurfaced. We do have that. I don't have it in this set here, but his seal impression does exist in archaeology. Again, confirming that within these verses we have Baruch, Jeremiah, Elishama, 3, okay, examples. Now let's go to verse 20. Okay, here in verse 20, and they laid up in the court, and they laid up the scroll of the in the chamber of Elishama the scribe. Okay, so here's his chamber of Elishama. Again, we have his seal impression. So the king sent forth Yehudi. All right, now his seal impression was also discovered. Guys, I'm not making this up. You can look it all up. To fetch the roll, and he took it out of Elishama the scribe's chamber. Okay, so we actually have multiple people. We have Baruch, we have Jeremiah, we have Elishama, and we have Yehudi. All of these people, all right, we actually have their seal impressions in our day. All right, very exciting. We also have the Nathan Melech seal. This allows us to prove the temple location, all right, is in the area of where the City of David Museum is in the City of David area, okay, the Ophel area, all right. We can prove it right here. Nathan Melech, the seal impression, we know the precise location, and it is right here in 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 11. He took away the horses of the kings of Judah to the sun at the entering in of the house of the Lord. At the entering in of the house of the Lord. What is that? That is a gate. At the entering in of the gate to the temple. By the chamber of Nathan Melech, the chamberlain or eunuch. Okay, so we get his precise seal impression and a precise building is a precise location, proving the location of the true temple. Location, all right. And it was in the suburbs. Here it says suburbs, but the word is not suburbs. It's Parbar. This is a gate, and the word Parbar appears in 1 Chronicles 26:18 as the west gate of the temple. So we do call some of the buildings in the west, we do call them Parbar. We call them scribe's chamber, and now you can see why we're getting these terms from Scripture. But here you see in the chamber of Nathan Melech, and we have his precise chamber and the west gate of the temple. All right, isn't measuring the temple fun, exciting? Where the seal impressions of the actual people in the Bible, not just 1, 2, 4, 5, exist in the same verses, found in the same location, in the city of David, okay? So guys, as exciting this is, I can bring you with me to Jerusalem if you will go back and watch the previous videos. We have taught on this. We have explained this as part of the series, Where's the True Location of the Temple? And it was these seal impressions that did prove the location of the temple. So it's very exciting. And it's very exciting to see the principle of time, okay, showing distance, all right, in the book of Ezekiel, where the year of the recording of the prophecy, the month and day, contributes to the measurements of the building and the structure, okay? So guys, this is a very exciting series. I hope you're as excited as I am. You're probably not, but follow along. Follow each message. We are including a few documents here. As you can see, we will allude to these in other videos where we get more specific into the specific buildings. We'll have full teachings on the specific buildings. We're giving some overview of what is our authorization. How can we be assured that we provide the most accurate information? We're not saying everything we're doing is 100% because we do have to make some decisions where we're not totally certain. We provide, of course, the most accurate, but we can prove our major things throughout the building and temple complex, you know, is a perfect order. So guys, thanks for watching. And this is part, of course, on our series, Measure the Temple, the altar, and those worshiping in it. So a voice came from the throne saying, "Praise our God, all you his servants that fear his name, both small and great."